Hello, I am here at this stunning building to interview an absolutely magnificent person who has not only been on Top Gear and Fifth Gear, but they saved the taxpayer in fuel duty £5.5 billion. I mean, what a man. And now he is championing electric cars, and I, little old me, is going to be debating him on electric cars, and he's none other than Quentin Willson.
Not Quintin.
Yes! Probably the most famous, successful person to camp electric...
You know how big he is.
Car man, I know. He's like the most well-known, but anyway, we better go see him because he'll be here soon. Let's go!
Quick, before he goes.
Well, hello, Quentin Willson.
Hello.
Thank you very much for doing this interview. I am absolutely honoured.
Look, it's a pleasure, Matilda. Lovely. And it's great to have young people talking about this, electric cars and the kind of conflict between the two. So it's great.
Well, obviously you've had a massive big career in just ice cars and electric cars as well. So you've done both, as you were also on Top Gear, and then now you're doing a massive big support of electric cars.
Yes. Right.
Yes. Well, here today we are here to discuss the topic of electric cars, and obviously you're on the electric car side, and I am on the sort of petrol and diesel side. So we're going to have a little discussion. Hopefully we won't like go into a row and we won't come out here fighting each other, but it should be a good day.
Good. So look, let's begin. Why don't you like electric cars?
Well, I just don't really feel like the fact of that they are necessarily as good for the environment as they are saying. And I mean, I've always been brought up with the diesel and petrol side, and I've seen, my brother's a mechanic, for example, so I've seen how it actually all works. I just don't necessarily think it's either the best way, and I don't like them as much.
Okay.
So, but also the fact of, I just don't necessarily feel as comfortable with electric cars as I do with diesel and petrol.
Have you ever been in an electric car?
I've been in a hybrid, yeah.
A hybrid, but not a proper, like a Tesla or something?
No.
Okay, well, I'd say to you, first of all, Matilda, you've got to be in something like that, because they are sensationally quick, they are really, really smooth, really refined, and really efficient. I mean, I've got one out there that's done 45,000 miles in 4 years, and I've spent, just a set of tyres in 45,000 miles. So, they're cheap to run, they really, really are fast, and smooth and refined and quiet, and, But that doesn't mean to say that, and I think the most important thing from this is to say that we will be driving combustion cars for the next 50 to 100 years. Nobody's going to take them away from you. You can still buy, after 2030, a used combustion car or van, and they will carry on.
I think that is one of the things that a lot of people are worried about, is the fact of that they feel like you have to get an electric car. You don't have the choice.
Well, when it comes to new cars, yes, you will have to buy an electric car, but you can buy a new one right up until midnight of that, 2030, and then carry on buying second-hand ones.
And do you reckon it's possible that we're going to make it to 2030? I mean, it's only 5 years away, isn't it? Do you reckon we're actually going to make it there?
I think so, because if you look at somewhere like China, they sold 1.7 million electric cars in September alone. So in a single month, they're selling 1.7 million. So this year, 17 million electric cars were sold globally. So, the rest of the world is really, really, really ramping up. And consumers are beginning to see, and we've seen the price of used electric cars come down, and manufacturers discounted the price of new ones. And consumers are looking at it and saying, this is really, really good value.
But do you reckon Tesla's and electric cars really aged that well? I mean, I was looking at some, and there was a 23-year-old, 23 make, and it only had 6,000 miles on it. And that usually, that type of Tesla is usually sold for about £115,000. As if one Auto Trader, it went for £72,000, so it dropped that massive amount when it's had barely any mileage, only one owner, and it's dropped that amount.
Yeah, but I mean, all combustion cars, especially expensive combustion cars, over 100 grand, they always do depreciate. So if you're looking at something like, a Porsche Taycan or a 911 even, they really do fall. So you can't single out that one particular Tesla for depreciating, anything like that.
I did see one as well, which was a 2020 model, and that went for £39,000.
And which was that?
Was it Tesla S-Plaid?
Tesla S-Plaid.
Yeah.
A Model S?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but if you buy a Jag, if you buy a BMW, they all, Mercedes, they all depreciate. I mean, yes, the depreciation on electric cars has been really quite severe, because there's been a lot of misinformation and scare stories around them. But they're beginning to level off now when they get to this second-hand value. So you can buy a Tesla Model 3, 2020 Tesla Model 3 for what? 15, 16 grand now, and that really is good value. So yes, they've depreciated, but for consumers who want to buy a used one, that's a good thing.
I mean, but the fact too, like a Tesla Plaid, as you were just saying earlier, just then, they do about 60 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds.
That's
and
the Model S Plaid.
Plaid, yeah. Sorry. And they have, they have 3 motors in order for them to do that fast, don't they? And they do over 1,000 horsepower. They have the torque per pound. Yeah, that's over 1,000, and it does. And the top speed of 200 miles per hour. I mean, that is just unbelievable, isn't it? The amount of speed they do. But how is that good for the environment? The fact is how fast they are.
Because they're not burning hydrocarbons, are they? You know, they're doing that without burning fuel. So yes, look, they're great. And the Model S Plaid is an extreme example: 1.9 to 60 over just 200 miles an hour. But it does that without anything coming out of an exhaust pipe.
I think the point she's trying to say from that is that because of the motors and everything, it's more mineral content. And if it was purely about the environment, why are they not just doing lesser powerful cars? I think that's the question she's trying to get across here.
An electric car has 6 times more mineral content than a petrol car has, a nice car.
But they don't burn hydrocarbons. And people say, look, the mining for the minerals in the batteries is bad for the environment. All mining is bad for the environment, okay? But I mean, 89% of all emissions are from fossil fuels. So if you're trying to say mining for cobalt or lithium is much worse than mining for fossil fuels, it's not the case. And remember too that lots of batteries now, LFP batteries, 50% of all Teslas don't have any cobalt in them. So we're using things like sodium ion, silicon, graphite. So those rare earth minerals will get less and less. And if you took all the lithium we've got in the batteries here in the UK now, in all the power tool batteries, the old electric car batteries and all that, and you recycled that, you'd have 50% of the lithium needed to produce more electric cars. So you wouldn't have to do virgin mining. So this idea that we're really affecting the environment by mining for battery minerals is wrong. And if you look at what fossil fuel produces every year in emissions, it's gigantic.
But lithium, when you mine it, I mean, you mainly do it inside Chile and Argentina, those sort of areas.
Yep.
When you're doing it, I mean, don't you have like scarred landscapes? I mean, you have to make these massive big pools, don't you? The water where it makes the brine to get it. I mean, that's massive landscapes, and then it's also taking water away from the community because obviously it's a desert, and they've got
Indigenous
communities there, which obviously rely on their water. I mean, water's obviously a massive big thing that people need, and they're taking away the water. I mean, they're pumping about 32 gallons per second of water, and within 5 hours, that's a swimming pool size of water they're taking constantly.
But then if you look over history at what fossil fuel and drilling for oil and exploration for oil and what that's done to countries like the DRC and Africa, you know, the damage to the landscape from fossil fuels is enormous. And we're only just starting to do this with lithium. There are deposits in Nevada and Australia, and we'll be able to get that out much more effectively. And sure, there are miners, some of them Chinese, where the processes could be better, but it's getting better. But again, I go back to this central point: you cannot compare the mining of minerals for batteries to fossil fuel, because fossil fuel has damaged the environment much more. Think of all those spillages in the sea, the oil tankers, the rigs and everything, you know.
Well, I understand that they obviously have really bad sides to them, but shouldn't we be focusing on making them better, because a lot of the companies are actually making fuel better?
We are focusing on making batteries better. We've got
no, I mean like the fuel of for the petrol.
Yes, they are, but you know, you are still burning stuff. You're still putting hydrocarbons into the atmosphere, you know, and it's much better to actually have no tailpipe and no emissions for the environment.
But I mean, aren't they just like sort of judging it from the tailpipe and not really judging it by the full lifespan of it. For example, sometimes they might not necessarily make it to the battery life and they might need it replacing. Then also the making of the batteries and the making of the car, and the fact that they have to travel so far. I mean, from Chile alone, they have to travel 12,000 miles to get to China, which China has the 10 most, biggest electric car company. I mean, 6 most biggest electric car companies.
Electric battery manufacturing companies.
Yeah, but look, I mean, oil on boats shipped all over the world. Massive.
But we can't ship that lithium, and then cobalt is saying that's travel 6,000 miles without ship.
No, we can't actually get oil without ships and pipelines as well. So I mean, you're still chucking out.
Yeah, but I mean, you're saying you want
into
to get rid of petrol and ice cars, and that oil, but you're still having to use it to get the electric. So you're basically having to use it to get the thing that's supposed to be cleaner, but you're still using it.
But that's much better, isn't it, than shipping drilling the oil, exploration for the oil, distribution of the oil, shipping it, refining it. The emissions from all that process is much, much more than taking a battery and shipping it to a car factory in China. And look, that's not ideal, and we should be making batteries locally. So
But why aren't we making them?
Well, because it takes time. This is an early stage. I mean, we're only 10. When the Model S came out, the Tesla Model S 2012. So we're 12 years into this. So give it a chance. But we will be making batteries locally. So you've got your car factory, say, in Germany, and with Tesla, you've got batteries being made on the site. So you're not shipping them across the world. And some Chinese companies do, but that's the ambition, to be able to have the car factory and the battery factory in one place.
But shouldn't we wait for that and get it all sorted? Because at the moment we're making cars which are, doing that CO2, which aren't ready yet. So we're pumping loads of cars out, but they're not actually ready. We don't have the setup.
But if we wait, nothing happens. You have to have progress. If you look if you look at the progress from 2009, when I first bought my electric car, which was a Mitsubishi IMEV, which would do 50 miles to one charge, to now the car I've got sitting outside, which does 300 miles to one charge. That's a huge leap. So if we just say stop and wait, nothing happens.
But I mean, we are, you say you are doing things where people buy electric cars, but you actually had an electric battery company that were being made. You actually had in British Volt in Northumberland, is it?
Yeah.
You actually had that being made, but then it went bust and it hasn't actually gone.
British Volt failed because it came, immediately after the Ukraine crisis. All the markets collapsed. All the investors said, "Oh no," the government were going to give them 100 million, and then they didn't because the whole geopolitical situation collapsed. It was the wrong time for that factory, and it's a great shame because we could be building battery factories now and batteries for UK cars. There is going to be one in Somerset with Agratas, JLR, so it's happening. But lots of companies on technological advances go under, and that's just the way with startups.
And what about the fact of the human rights side to this, especially with cobalt? The fact of how they're making it is the fact is that people are having to actually go down the mines to get to.
Okay, so the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, they have some issues with child mining, and a lot of those are Chinese companies. But we've got things like the Fair Cobalt Alliance. So most of the large European car makers who do still get cobalt from the DRC have signed that, so they're building schools. And as I said earlier, look, you're not going to be, your cobalt is in petrol refining, it's in that iPad, it's in my phone, and nobody's ever complained about it before, but with electric cars, suddenly it's such a huge issue. And no, you can't have kids going down mines to make cobalt, absolutely not. But the cobalt being used in batteries has dropped 90%. So on LFP batteries, again, there's no cobalt at all. So it's beginning to really stop. And there will be a time when we don't have cobalt in any electric car batteries.
Sorry to interrupt, but also Australia is a place where we get a lot of cobalt from, so DRC is not the only place we get cobalt.
Yeah.
But Amnesty International did a report, and this is very recent, it's only the 15th of October 2024, called Recharge for Rights, and it said that out of all the main manufacturers, from Tesla, Mercedes, all of them, BYD, not one of those companies had knew from the start from the mining to the finished product, they couldn't follow the whole process, that there wasn't any human rights exploitation. And in fact, BYD, Geely Auto, Hyundai and Mitsubishi didn't have any details on the supply chain. Tesla was the second best. Mitsubishi wasn't the best. Mercedes was the best. So Amnesty allowed them 90 points. And if you got 90 points, you knew exactly where your supply chain was for your battery. And they accepted 68 points, I think it was, 64, 68 points as adequate. And the highest was Mercedes on 51 points. So I don't see how that can be, you know, what is happening to basically you're championing, aren't you, of electric cars? But what are you doing to champion that there's no human rights exploitation? That's what I think what everybody's obviously extremely concerned about is the exploitation. And Amnesty have come up with that report that they're concerned. It says they're extremely concerned about the impact mining is having on communities around the world.
Well, all mining in all communities around the world. But look, you know, you can't defend this if you can't have a battery passport which shows the full circular life of those minerals. That's unacceptable, and I completely agree. And Amnesty's right that we've got to get that better, and all these large car manufacturers have to make sure they've got that absolute paper trail of where those critical minerals, particularly cobalt, comes from and how it's mined. And I would completely and utterly agree with that. But that doesn't mean to say we're going to have to stop making electric cars altogether.
But who's challenging them on that?
Let me finish. In Australia, we have big reserves of cobalt as well. And if you take the DRC out of it, where there are all sorts of issues why kids go down mines, then we can start to make sure that the cobalt is properly mined and the human rights issues aren't there.
But 70% of the world's cobalt does come from Congo, and it is obviously a big problem, but how come we're not sorting it? I mean, like, won't the car that you've come today, is there not on a possibility to factors that has had been mined by a child or even an adult or anybody that has not had that, you know, safe mining?
So yeah, look, we've got to change it. I completely agree. But that doesn't mean to say I'm going to stop driving that car, does it?
Well, isn't that not families or homes or people just that have not had a good life because we want to drive around inside these cars?
No, but then, you know, people say if you take away the mining from the DRC, then, you know, those communities collapse because they rely on it for income.
Well, they move on to something else for a while, but not mining, like actually focus on the community and build up their, you know, area.
Yeah, well, that's a political problem. Talk to the people at the DRC. You can't blame all of that on electric cars, you know. But it's an area that does need a lot of work, and we need to make sure that these kids do not go down mines at all, and we know exactly where those critical minerals have come from. I completely agree.
And you know, like, you did do Top Gear, and it was obviously it is a massive, big show. Do you reckon Top Gear would have been as successful if it was with electric cars?
Who knows? Possibly not, because, you know, you can't get as emotional about electric cars as you can with combustion cars, and I get that, and I've still got a 1964 Mustang convertible, and I love it. But I think we will see, you know, hopefully a TV show where you pit ICE cars against combustion cars. You do it in a fun way like they did with Top Gear, and do challenges and see which comes out best. But the answer to that one is probably no, it wouldn't have been as successful.
And also, I mean, this is a different point, but like the fact of you say you don't have the same motion with it, well, won't there be like sort of a generation of mainly obviously boys, because they tend to be more interested inside cars, will not be that generation that don't have that interest in cars, so then they, because the boys are a bit more, they get into trouble. I mean, I'm like this lot to my brother, I mean, if you didn't have cars, it wouldn't be the way it is.
We'd be right, Quinton would be right troublemaker if he didn't have that car.
It really would be.
I must admit, say, Billy is not here to defend himself.
If it was, I'd probably agree. So, is that not a generation of people, or not just generation, future generations, in the fact that they will get into different troubles because they don't have cars to play with and work on or have that career?
I'm not sure we can go that far. What is happening is that we're seeing that your generation isn't driving as much because it's so expensive, whether it's electric or combustion. And I think the big problem for your generation is that electric cars are hard to insure and expensive to buy. So yeah, but generally we're seeing that, you know, the amount of people taking licenses now is down significantly. And I would say, and I'm patron of a thing called Young Driver, that teaches kids from 11 to 17 to drive on private land, that you should all do, and everybody should drive. You know, it's really, really important. And your generation can still have access to all these cheap combustion cars, these 500 quid cars, and you should drive. But to say that because we've got electric cars that boys will get into trouble because they can't drive anymore, I think, Matilda, that's a bit of a stretch.
No, I think what she's saying is when you were younger, when you were 7, you said you went with your father to look at a Jaguar Mark II, and you said it was the smell of the leather and the roar of the engine. And from then on, you loved cars forever. And then you've bought a car and changed the clutch with your friend.
Yep.
And that's what boys do, isn't it? They tinker about with cars, and all my generation that I came up with. But in years to come, in not so many generations, there's not going to be that because you cannot tinker with electric cars. I think that's what she's trying to say there. And it's taking all that fun that you had, that I had, that Billy had, it's taking all that fun away. And it does stop. It will obviously stop crime because they're doing that most of the crime in places that are run down now because there's nothing for kids to do, isn't it? So it does stop crime, and it stops that enjoyment and that love that you've had that started you off with cars. I think that's what she's trying to say, rather than if an electric car comes out, the crime will go up.
Look, go on.
Again, I just want to set the record that electric cars are not soulless things. The Porsche Taycan has a very good haptic system and sound system. It sounds exactly like a petrol car. That sound and that feel is there, and that's becoming more standard. And even Teslas, you could set them to actually have an engine mode.
But you can't mend them, can you? Like,
you
for example,
certainly can. I was going to
okay, go on, sorry. Go on.
So I have a couple of friends who love modding their existing electric cars, either cosmetically or physically. We've got a Tesla Model 3 to go faster than it actually goes by gutting certain things.
So let's do this properly.
Yeah.
So look, what you're saying is that you can't tinker with electric cars, right? And that's going to sort of disable a generation of boys like I was when I was young who fiddled with cars. And I think modern cars are hard to tinker with anyway because you open the bonnet, it's all plastic, isn't it? But with electric cars, you can change stuff. And we're seeing lots of people with older Teslas, older Nissan Leafs, modding them, doing the software, making them go faster, putting big wheels on them. So I don't think that's true. I think you will be able to tinker with electric cars, but just in a different way. And I mean, if you look at what people are doing with conversions, so they're taking, say, an old Porsche, and I don't completely agree with this, but taking an old Porsche 911 and putting electric motors and batteries in it. So look, that whole kind of subculture of tinkering with electric cars is alive and well. It just hasn't gone mainstream yet. So you'll see, and there are firms now where you can buy all sorts of gear to put on your electric car. You know, wired wheels, body kits, all sorts of stuff. So I wouldn't kiss goodbye to tinkering with electric cars, because there's a whole new generation like you who are coming up and who will be able to do this and buy motors from crashed EVs and things like that and put them in combustion cars on whatever. So I think that's quite an exciting future.
And I mean, this goes for ICE cars as well. But the modern ones, the fact is that they have so much, you know, things like self-shutting boots, I mean, and, you know, shutting the wind mirrors and stuff, and all these heated seats and stuff. Why do we need all these things?
And it goes wrong, Matilda. It goes wrong. I mean, I'm exactly the same. Yeah, look, I've got a Mercedes SLK at home, and, you know, the heated seats are gone because it's just too complicated. It's so difficult to fix, and cars have got far, far too complicated, be they electric or combustion. And it becomes, and here's a really interesting thing, it's becoming almost too expensive to try and repair them, because they're falling in value so much, and this is not just EVs but combustion cars as well. And then you go to the dealer, and I had to go for a new key for this car, £200, because it's an electric key, £200 for a replacement key. I mean, hello.
On the SRK.
Yeah. So that whole world is really, really changing. Cars are becoming far too complicated, and give me the days when I could take out my socket set and play with my Daimler Dart or my E-Type or my 9059 Mini. But the world is changing.
Well, there's just quite a recent thing that happened where sadly, I think, was it 4 people, sadly died inside an electric car because it set on...
It was the Daily Mail, we only saw it last night, the Daily Mail ran the story that it locked.
Did you have an incident where it...
Yeah, it was a push-button door.
It was a Tesla Model X.
Yes.
Yeah. But
so she hasn't really read up on it, but yeah.
But should they not I mean, because of the fact that they had to push the button for it to open is electronic, should that not be a health and safety feature, the fact that they have to actually have an opening door?
They do. They have an emergency release portable and actual traditional latch in the front as well.
So that mustn't have worked on that particular model.
Well, no, they didn't know where it was. But so I've read that story as well, and sadly, people died in a crashed Tesla and didn't know how to open the doors. But look, you can't just say that's electric cars. I mean,
no, I know it isn't.
But I think what I'm saying is about education on things. So, for example, obviously, when you challenge about fair fuel, I mean, you did Fair Fuel UK, didn't you? And you saved the country billions, didn't you? So you've got a massive voice. You've got a massive, people listen to you. So shouldn't you be pushing more the fact that it's what Rowan Atkinson said? Obviously, you're not going to agree on all the points that he said. That it's this fast fashion of changing cars, wanting the closing boots, wanting the things we don't need. And that's with petrol and diesel cars. If it's all about the environment, shouldn't we, and people like yourself that have such a be pushing that people need to repair, so sort of half and half, basically. What Rowan Atkinson says, repair what you've got, and what you're saying is bring in more environmentally vehicles. Basically slow it down a bit, rather than pushing the electric car so much. Look after what we've got as well. Would you not see that as a better route?
I really agree that probably the greenest car of all is the oldest one. Like my 60-year-old Mustang has paid off its carbon debt. I haven't bought a new car to replace that. That to me, it gets used a few hundred miles a year. So that's great. And we should, repair, restore and maintain the cars we've got rather than building new ones and digging all the steel and stuff out the ground. So yes, absolutely in favour of maintaining old cars and making sure that they run as long as possible. And building lots of new cars and fashion and changing it because it's got an electric boot or, air scarf on the seats. Yeah, but that's a consumer world we live in. And it's not right, and I agree.
Well, like our Nissan Micra, I mean, it uses barely any fuel, it really, really does. And we can get miles with it and it's fine. But should not we be having like ICE cars like the Nissan Micra and just, simple and work fine and don't actually use that much fuel?
Yeah, I mean, look, there is an argument that says that combustion engines are getting more and more efficient, but you still get a level of CO2 and NOx emissions in cities which are not good, and people breathe them. What we need to see is the £15,000 EV, like the Dacia Spring, which is what is that 16 grand, and bring the prices down so you can buy a brand new car like your Micra electric with maybe a 34 kilowatt hour battery that will do 200 miles and cost 10 grand. Brand new. That's what the market is looking for and what consumers want.
I mean, the example just with the ICE cars, a Nissan petrol. A Nissan Micra 2012 11 one and weighed 640 kilograms.
This is just a petrol,
kilograms.
Like ours.
And then ours weighs 630 kilograms. So just that one, inside that period of time, has gone a whole lot more heavier. And now the electric ones, the new of these ones, are a lot more heavier. Do you not think there's a problem with the fact of also petrol, but the fact of how heavy they are?
Yeah, it's called auto-obesity. And petrol cars and electric cars are getting heavier and heavier and heavier. When you try and park in a car park space, you can see how big our cars have come. I took my little 59 Mini out and put it next to a modern Mini, and it was like twice the size.
So it takes away the way.
Yeah, exactly. And actually what we need is smaller cars in our cities. We don't need SUVs. I don't believe that, this cult of pickup trucks and SUVs is right. We need to have small, compact, economical, light cars for going around cities. And we haven't got enough of those because obviously the car makers don't make money out of those. They make money out of the big SUVs. And then they started making electric SUVs, which the world does not want, by the way. I don't agree with £100,000 electric SUV. It's not what we want. We want light, efficient, clean cars.
Well, an electric car, I think this is an electric Tesla costs 2,000 kilograms, and a Model X Plaid, isn't it? that costs that weighs 2,460 kilograms. I mean, do you not think there's a problem with the fact of how heavy they are because of the tyre wear, which I personally think that tyre wear is a real problem for the environment more than anything. I mean, well, obviously mining, but the fact of tyre wear, about how much comes off that, because obviously they're so heavy, so they're going to have tyre wear.
Well, the tyre compounds are different on electric cars. Now, there is no data, and I get asked this a lot, to say that tyre wear on EVs is worse than ICE. So,
I think we
just a second.
Can they come in when you finish? Yeah, please.
So, there is no data out there to say that the tyre wear on EVs is higher than ICE. Now, I talked to these fleets. I spoke to Lex Auto Lease the other day. I spoke to Tusker. I spoke to National Grid. And they've got 3,500 EVs, and they say that there is no significant difference in tyre wear. My own car has done 45,000 miles on one set of tyres. Now, if there was this massive spike in tyre wear on EVs, we would know about it. It would be all over the Daily Mail. So this is broadly anecdotal. There has been some research by a company, I won't name them, but it's been kind of widely questioned. So right now, we have no real serious empirical data to say that the wear on EV tyres is significantly more than ICE.
But were you just saying there about your driving? You're a professional driver, so you're sort of like you say, one of those people that you're just picking one person out because you are a professional driver. But Michelin, this is what Michelin says, that the tyre wear is 20% faster. Goodyear say it's 50%. Now, obviously, one's right and wrong, but what they're saying is the wear's there. And EPYX said that they lasted 6,350 fewer miles. And this is because the vehicles are heavier and they have more torque. And it also said the tyres are now needed. This is Michelin themselves off their own website. Says they need to be a stronger construction and more robust rubber and a greater mass. Now, surely that's against the environment, because anything that's stronger construction, more robust and a greater mass is more recycling. But isn't it obvious that if it's heavier, it's going to wear more tyres, and the torque is different to a petrol car, isn't it?
People drive EVs when they first get them quite quickly.
Yeah.
So you see advanced levels of wear in the first few thousand miles, but they then slow down. All the people we speak to, and we put this out on LinkedIn and things like that, they all say, actually, my tyre wear is the same as my ICE car. So if you rag it, yeah, you're gonna lose particulates and it's gonna degrade quicker. But the information that I am seeing now does not suggest that. And if you've got someone like National Grid, who've got 3,500 EVs, and they're saying we're not seeing an increase in wear, that's empirical data that we can use. I think in the early days when tyre compounds were different, there may have been advanced wear, but it's not a thing as far as I'm concerned.
A lot of people, and things that have said the fact of that batteries do set on fire. I mean, I know like other cars set on fire, normal cars set on fire, but batteries set on fire a bit more powerfully and a bit more dangerously, and they can set on fire by themselves, like for example overheating or overcharging. And what would you say about the fact that they do set on fire?
So okay, if you look at all the stats globally from America and places like Sweden, you're 20% more likely to have a fire in a combustion car than you are in an electric car, and the amount of combustion car fires that are never ever reported is massive. But one electric car fire hits the news, and it's all over the place. And the Luton car park fire, by the way, was not caused by an electric car; it was caused by a diesel Range Rover, and we know that beyond any doubt. Lithium-ion battery fires are severe. So when an EV goes up, it goes up, yeah, and that's something we need to deal with, and we need to make sure the fire service know how to treat them, and also there are processes inside that battery which can cool it down, which can stop it igniting. And what we're doing now with LFP batteries, which don't have that, what they call thermal runaway, is you're reducing that propensity to catch fire, for the battery to overheat. So in time, we will almost eliminate battery fires in EVs. But yes, I agree that if it does catch fire because of thermal runaway, then yeah, we need to make sure that we have the protocols to put it out quickly.
The fact is that they take because obviously you were saying about the fact that there's such big fires, is the fact that it does, a normal ice car would take about 1,000 to 2,000 litres, and as if a electric car, it
they
takes
take a
3,000
long
litres.
time to put out, and we need to sort the science out and make sure that they don't. And that means that things like LFP batteries are going to be much, much better because they won't catch fire, and you'll be able to put them out very, very quickly.
But when they do actually set on fire and they get them out, when they have to get a special recovery truck to go pick it up, and they have to have like a special, they have a name, what's the name of the special?
Oh, they'd have a specially trained fire. That was Essex.
This is Essex.
Yeah,
and they have to
Essex
also,
Fire Service.
Yeah, and then when they do get the actual recovery truck, they have to have a fire truck that follows the recovery truck to base.
That's Bedfordshire Fire Service are actually following the
and then they
recovery
have to be
truck
inside
home.
a contained area because they can set fire within 3 or 2 weeks.
They can combust, yeah.
But if everybody, because obviously I suppose we are, wanting fact of electric cars, everybody's wanting electric, government wanting everybody to have electric cars. When that does happen, what's going to happen? Because every single fire service is going to have to follow one.
No, because there won't be lithium-ion batteries. They'll be different. There'll be sodium-ion, there'll be LFP batteries, and the thermal runaway potential will be massively reduced because we'll be changing the battery chemistry.
But when the government are wanting to say the fact of everybody to get EVs, if everybody did go, I mean, I know not everybody has one now, but that's only because people haven't all gone out and got one. But if everybody did all go on what they said to go and get one, when we have loads of electric vehicles that not only do all those sort of things of fire, but are also being produced above the mining and stuff that hasn't had that better, it hasn't become better.
Well, it will in time. This is what they call a nascent technology. It's new. We're learning how it works. We're learning how to mine it and how to make those battery minerals more environmentally friendly and to reduce the risk of fire. And there's a great place here in Coventry called UKBIC, the UK Battery Industrialisation Centre, and they do research on this all the time. And they are, making batteries which won't have that fire risk anymore.
And Tesla and I believe Nissan and there was another company I can't get if you want to. When a battery goes wrong with one of their persons who's
Porsche.
Porsche was that before. If they go wrong with the person that the consumers bought the electric car, if it goes wrong, they have the different sections, units, is it called?
The cells.
Cells, yeah. If one goes wrong, they don't just replace one, they actually get rid of the whole battery. Is that not wrong? Shouldn't they be just replacing that? Because they can get it replaced, but they have to go to a separate person, independent of. But
so, battery degradation. Okay, so people think that you need a new battery after 5 years. You don't. I drove a Tesla the other day with 250,000 miles on it, and it was fine. On the original battery, the factory battery. So, battery degradation, generally experts now agree that a battery will outlast the car because they're just not failing at the rates that people predicted in the early days, and we're not seeing it. Some hybrid batteries are failing because they've got more work to do and they're smaller. The idea of repairability, Matilda, is really, really important. And while there's a huge recycling industry and 95% of a battery's content can be recycled, I don't believe we should be putting them into the crusher. I think we should be, as you quite rightly say, taking the cells out, replacing the faulty ones, balancing the new cells, putting it back into that pack, so that battery could last another 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles. So, the battery repairability is something I would like the government to do to make sure that we're not wasting these precious minerals, which you talk about taking out from virgin mining, and making sure that those packs have the longest life possible. And there are companies, there's a few of them now, who are doing this sort of thing. But I watched a video the other day with disposable vapes, where I think it was 25 million disposable vapes are thrown away every year with these little lithium-ion batteries. Now, if you recycled all those, a huge opportunity. So I think it's really, really important that we are able to take our electric cars in the future, take out a couple of cells, put 2 new ones in, boom. And then when the battery does fail after 500,000 miles, whatever, let's use it and make it into static energy storage. So you have these big batteries like Elon Musk does in California, which can help balance the grid and things like that. So the great thing about the battery is that it can be almost infinitely recycled, which you can't do with petrol or diesel.
do we have, this is just a little curiosity question, do we actually have the crushers inside England?
Yeah, we do. There are companies that do this. There's Ecobat in Birmingham who that, and they recycle batteries. And then in America, you've got Redwood Materials who recycle, and then another one up in Plymouth called Altilium, who take the materials, the black mass, out of the crushed batteries, and then put it into new batteries. So they're helping make new batteries for Jaguar. So that circular process, I think, is really, really important. If we can contain all these minerals here in the UK and make them into new car batteries, what's not to like?
And I wanted to go on to another subject of
The last one was his opinion on hydrogen cars.
That's what yes, what is your opinion on hydrogen cars?
Okay, I've driven hydrogen cars. I've even drunk the water out of the exhaust pipe, which was, it didn't taste very nice, but it was pure. There was nothing in it, because that's the only emission from hydrogen. There was a time when we all thought hydrogen was the great white hope, that it would be super. But then when you look at the cost of making green hydrogen, because it's no good making hydrogen which is a byproduct of fossil fuels, grey hydrogen, because that doesn't get us anywhere. You're still creating emissions. To make green hydrogen is very expensive. Really, it's going to be what, about £5 a kilogram, and to fill your tank up. I mean, in America, all those people who bought the Toyota Mirais, they're finding that it's $350 to fill their tank now because the price of hydrogen has gone up so much. And it requires so much electricity to make the hydrogen that you'd be better just plugging an electric car in. So the cost of the hydrogen, making the hydrogen green, is big and at scale. Then you've got the issues with the pipe work and the storage, because hydrogen will find the tiniest little gap to get out. I remember there used to be a BMW 7 Series, which was hydrogen, and you'd leave it at the airport and it would just go down on its spring because the hydrogen leaked out while you're away on holiday. And then fuel cell cars are expensive. If you look at, how many big car makers are making hydrogen cars, it's just one, BMW. We're talking about the 5 Series, and then you've got Toyota with the Mirai, and then there's Hyundai with one as well. So there's 3, but they're not in serious production. When you look at the amount of electric cars on the roads in the world, there's only a few hydrogen cars. So it ain't going to happen.
But aren't they planning on getting one out in 2028?
Who's that?
BMW.
BMW, yeah, one.
But if they got the infrastructure, if they worked out like you're saying about electric cars and the batteries, obviously there's we agree, don't we? There's human rights abuses, but they don't know that there's not, as in they can't follow the chain of the battery. And there's a cost, like with the infrastructure, and the infrastructure of the charging points, and the cost of rapid charges is about 70 odd pence a kilowatt hour. Yeah. So you obviously part of your argument is that it's getting the cost down. So if they could get the cost of hydrogen down, is it more environmentally friendly than ICE vehicles and electric vehicles, in your opinion?
It's still, the emissions from hydrogen are still lifetime going to be much, much more than an electric car. That's the problem. And you say, okay, well, if we build the infrastructure, if you think building a charging infrastructure is difficult, you wait till you try and build a hydrogen infrastructure. The tankers, the pipes, everything, the fuel stations, it would be massively expensive. So most experts say, look, there's never going to be really a mass market for hydrogen passenger cars. We may see it for HGVs, we may see it for marine, and we might even see it for short-haul aviation. But in terms of passenger cars, right now it's just an expensive, overcomplicated solution that requires too much electricity. And you don't, you're making a fuel cell to be powered by electricity to make the hydrogen to power the car. Take all that out and just plug your car in because it's got a battery.
So are BMW and Toyota taking a risk then, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Because they're putting that as that's the mass producing the car.
So Toyota always kind of backed hydrogen and backed hybrids. They've not had an EV strategy, and it's beginning to find them wanting. I mean, BMW, I think it's a brave thing, but I don't think it's a mass market thing for them. So we'll see. And all the big hydrogen projects that we were talking about 4 or 5 years ago, they're just not being funded because investors go, actually, this green hydrogen stuff is going to be very, very expensive.
Would you ever think it would be possible, the fact of them having wagons, you know, because obviously wagons, the point of them is to pull heavy things. Do you reckon that would manage with electric to pull heavy things?
Well, we've already got, you know, people like Mercedes and DAF and Scania making electric trucks. And when you look at the chassis of the electric truck, it's flat. It's ideal to put batteries in. So the answer to that question is we've already got them. And look at the Tesla Semi, which is being, you know, successfully produced over in America. That's doing really, really well. So the era of the electric HGV, truck, wagon, semi, whatever you want to call it, it's here.
And you know, the fact that electric are heavier, will that not be more on the roads?
Okay, so the argument that electric cars are responsible for our pothole crisis, that's not true. You know, if you look at a 44-ton lorry, that's the thing that destroys the roads, and SUVs, things like that, and the fact that the roads are badly maintained. So those attempts by certain newspapers to blame our pothole crisis on electric cars, it's completely wrong.
But do not have like just more weight than ICE cars though?
Not huge amounts. Yes, they're heavier, but they're not massively. But when you start, you know, building electric,
because the fact of that they're damaged. If you put them all together, then it must do more damage. If you know, if they all.
There's only 1.2 million electric cars on the roads in the UK. There are 40 million combustion cars. So you can't sort of say that 1.2 million is causing all these potholes and those 13.
But when everybody does have EVs, won't then there be problems with roads? Will they have to like change?
I doubt it very much. The problems with roads are caused by poor maintenance and using asphalt that we've done for years and years and years. What we need is roads that last, and other countries have them. Why don't we? So that's a whole different debate, Matilda, about why our roads are so crap. And I'm, again, you know, talking about this regularly, that we should use modern materials. We should make sure that roads last a minimum of 20 years, and not, as a moment, it's you have to repair them every couple of months if it's in winter. So I agree, but electric cars are not responsible for potholes.
Just you said the word winter. Electric cars, the fact is that they're not quite good inside high heat and high cold, because obviously the batteries just aren't necessarily that good inside that sort of time, whether they either really damage them or it just reduces their aid to filling up.
So what happens in winter, I'll finish this. What happens in winter is you do get, the battery has to work harder, so it reduces your range by, on average, about 20%. But then if you look at a combustion car in winter, the engine has to work harder to warm up, so you know there is an increase in fuel consumption there as well of maybe 10%. And there's stats in this book, incidentally, Little Book of EV.
We've read it.
Does an awful lot. So yes, but now we've got batteries with or electric cars with heat pumps, so it makes it much easier for the battery to warm up in preconditions, so it doesn't use so much. And then you've got to ask yourself the question: Norway, which is a very cold country, has 94% of EVs, and they are managing just fine. So the idea that, you know, I'm going to get stranded in my EV in the cold, it's not good. In fact, Motor Trend magazine did a thing where they ran an EV in -20 to see how long the battery would last, and I think it lasted 4 days. So you'd have to be in a really long traffic jam to get frozen out with a dead battery.
And this one I didn't look too much into, but I just basically literally watched a video and they said about it. It seemed like a professional design. And I didn't look too much into it, but they did say the fact that it happened in Germany where there was a traffic jam and the electric cars basically lost power. And because you can't like tow them or anything, apparently you have to get craned out. That might be a bit, I don't know whether
there
that's
was
right.
a story about people who had just bought an electric car, they didn't charge it overnight, they didn't have much battery range, and it got cold and the car went dead. Now, that one example is not, you know, that does not mean that every electric car is going to be like that. It's like you forget to fill your car up with petrol, you get into traffic jam, it runs out, simple as that, you know. We're not seeing in winter the hard shoulder lined with electric cars that are frozen because the temperature's made their battery lose power.
But if the petrol runs out of fuel, you can either walk to a petrol station or you can have a petrol can with you. So what would you do if that happened with electric?
Well, with electric cars, they give you a lot of warning if they're about to run out. I mean, they don't just suddenly stop. You get all sorts of stuff coming up in your dashboard telling you your range is low, and then with certain ones, it will direct you to a charging station, the nearest charging station. I don't know anybody who's run out in an electric car with a dead battery. The AA, it's apparently down to... The AA, it's apparently down to less than 2% now of breakdowns because of dead batteries. So again, you've got to ask yourself a question, Matilda. If it was an issue, we would see all these cars and all these people waving at the hard shoulder saying my battery's dead, but we're not.
In terms of performance and driving experience, this is from Dean, how do electric vehicles stack up against traditional petrol diesel vehicles?
Okay, Dean, how is it driving an electric car compared to a combustion car in terms of handling performance? Mate, you'd have to come out with me. I mean, a Tesla Model 3 performance, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, 163 top speed, and a beautiful chassis that's really low, centre of gravity, equal weight distribution. I mean, it's a lovely, lovely car to barrel around bends in. I remember when I first drove one, I was blown away by it, absolutely. So look, don't think they're boring, mate, they're not.
This is Neville's. How crucial do you think to EV uptake is the point at which EV ownership reaches parity with ICE vehicles from a cost perspective, with lower battery prices approaching as soon as 2026, as well as greater efficiency? Will this encourage higher ownership and the necessary improvements in the charging infrastructure that are needed?
Okay, good question. Right, so battery prices have come down significantly. I think in 2014 it was $200 per kilowatt hour. Now in China it's $73 per kilowatt hour, so massive fall. They are getting cheaper, they should get cheaper still, and we need government to do more. We need more charging stations, we need more government to show that they really are behind this, and we need how to get the insurance down, and to make people aware that they're not the big bad wolf that people say, that there are 1.2 million people out there who are running around on electric cars quite happily. They've folded them into their lives. So we're close to that point. I mean, this month electric cars were the fastest selling fuel type on Auto Trader, and also in terms of new car sales, they've done very well indeed too. So we're not there yet, and we need a lot more work from the government to do all the charging stations, and just to give people confidence. And I do this stuff because I think I've been driving electric cars since 2009, and they work for me, and it's important as somebody who's in the public eye to communicate that and to communicate my experience. It's not an ideological thing, it's because they work and they are better.
You'll like this one, Quinton. No, let me do this. You'll like this one. Right, you ready? This is Aaron's question. What will happen to the future of car preservation after electric cars replace ICE cars? Electric cars, especially Teslas, have no character and are essentially white goods that have a limited shelf life until software updates render them obsolete and unusable, like an iPhone 1. What have you got to say to Aaron?
So look, Aaron, you may think they're soulless, but trust me, take one round of track and you'll find out that they're not soulless at all. And they will last and last and last, and it's not about software updates. Elon Musk is no fool, and he's created a software platform that is very, very, very good indeed. They're not going to disappear. We will see them, around on the roads for a long, long time, and they're not white goods. They can be extremely powerful and extremely entertaining. Look at the model Plaid, 1.9 to 60, and I drove the early model, early Tesla Roadster back in 2004, 5, and it was amazing. Even then, when it was based on an old Lotus chassis, it blew me away. And Musk handed me the keys and said, "Try this out," and I came back as a complete convert. And that's why people say, "Well, why have you turned into traitor? Why have you been the turncoat and gone to electric cars?" Because I've had those moments where I've just seen them, driven them, and thought, wow, this is the future. Going right back to 2007, 1997, where I drove GM's EV1 in California, Los Angeles, for Top Gear. And I remember thinking, and it's still on YouTube somewhere, wow, this is the future, as I'm storming down Sunset Boulevard, flattening the battery.
Could I just quickly say?
No, because this is David's one. This is the last one. It's quite a long one, but I'm going to cut it, but it hasn't taken away the context of the question. So basically, it's about the charging, and it says, so this is cut it down. It's still quite long. Approximately 1/3 of UK homeowners, often lower income families, lack off-street parking to install home charge points, limits their charging capabilities. It then goes on to about the home charging cost, which is 6 to 7 pence to 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour, and public charging is 30 to 39 pence. So it's obviously a lot more. And it says, how do you justify this?
It's completely wrong. We should have cheaper electricity for all. So you need reform of the electricity market, absolutely. We've got the highest electricity costs in Europe, almost. Certainly for industrial costs, it's the highest in Europe. And the French have all those wonderful nuclear power stations. We need to sort it out. But for people who don't have on-street parking, it's a big issue. And they can't get the electricity for 6.5 or 7.5 p per kilowatt hour as you can with Octopus and home charging. And they have to pay sometimes up to 80 pence per kilowatt hour. This is completely wrong. And it's something I'm talking about a lot and saying that we need the market to be reformed, and we need things like these gullies in the pavement. So you've got a terraced house, you can put a gully in the pavement and you can have your charging thing from your consumer box emerging on the curb, and you just plug your car in. Councils are doing it with the speed of a rampaging glacier. We need to do this much quicker, because those 30% of people, as you say, they're often low income, they're often in areas with poor air quality. They need to have low or zero emission motoring as well. So government's got to do that, and I pressure them all the time and say to Louise Haig at the DFT, come on, let's do this. Let's make it easier for people to buy, own and charge electric cars. And it's a big issue for me.
Thank you, Quinton, very much for answering our subscribers' comments. That was really kind of you.
Thank you.
And look, thanks for your interest. And this has been, what's the word, sparky, which is great, and it's good.
You've done well. You've stood
Can
up
I
for
ask
yourself.
any more?
It's up to Quinton,
Is
obviously.
that
Go on.
start as Strictly Come Dancing. I'm dancing myself.
This is, oh God, this is worse. Don't ask me anything about electric cars, but not this.
You're Strictly Come Dancing. For some reason, I don't know why, I cannot find your footage of you dancing
I'm
anywhere.
so upset about that.
I can't find it
Genuinely,
anywhere.
it was
We
on
desperately
YouTube.
want to see it.
And I've been asking, I actually gotta have to do it. I have to contact.
Can you give us a dance now?
No, never. Look, so it was a cha-cha to Pink Cadillac. And this fabulous global ballroom dancing champion, Hazel Newbury. And I was just so rubbish. And it was, people called it the toilet dance, because I was going around like this zombie. And I mean, I just can't dance. And, it was a terrifying experience in front of, 12 million people watching at that time. And you've no idea how frightening it was. But I believe it's really important to put yourself in situations where you're not comfortable and where people can take the mickey out of you and you're not serious. And that was one of those moments. And I would never do all the other ones, and because
Have you been asked for them all?
yeah. They're all a bit self-indulgent, but Strictly was something where you had to graft and you had to really practice, and I did, and I lost a stone doing it, but it made no difference.
Didn't you get like the worst mark?
Yeah. The lowest.
Don't rub it in, tell
Hey,
that.
thanks
If
for
you can't beat
reminding
him
us
on
of
electric cars, beat him on Strictly Come Dancing.
That's what I mean.
I got the lowest ever recorded score, 8 out of 40.
Didn't Bruno say it was like a crowd running around Robin Reliant?
It was like a Robin Reliant circling a Ferrari. And it was one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. So yeah, I mean, I was crapping. But look, if you're going to do Strictly, you either win sensationally and do very well, or like me, you really crash and burn, because failure is the new success. So look,
are we good? Oh no, she's gonna go out. Sorry.
we must find that clip, because it is.
I know.
Will you send it to us if you find
today.
it?
I'm gonna get that done.
Yeah.
Can you send it to us if you find it? We'd love to see it. And was there a last one?
Well, I was just going to ask about the fact of, a bit more serious, but the fact of that, where is the fuel coming from to charge the electric car? Where is it actually coming from?
So most people charge their electric cars at night, okay? So that's renewables, that comes from wind, solar, hydro, and it's all kind of certified renewable. People like Octopus and Hive, Eon, buy this electricity when it's cheap, and you charge on renewables. It's not made by fossil fuels in the vast majority of cases. Now, if you're charging during the day, possibly some of that is going to be made from fossil fuel, from gas generation. But most people who charge at night, and that's over 80%, charge using renewables.
And is it like the infrastructure? Because obviously, when you're charging at night, like you say, most people do charge at night. The sun obviously doesn't shine at night, but then you have to rely on wind. So is it like that? Is it all set up for it?
We need to have, you know, better, because like recently there's not been much wind and there's not been much sun because of this funny cyclonic effect. So yeah, we're going to have to find out, you know, how we do this, and we'll have to store energy in batteries, and hopefully those batteries that support the grid will be made from recycled batteries, so that you're not having to rely on gas power stations. But you know, everybody says that you know, the grid is going to need support over the years until we really do crack this electricity.
There was a video I was watching of, I don't know what it was, it might have been having an interview, and I read the comments, and somebody commented, when everybody gets EVs, everybody, the government and the people in charge are just going to, you know, just say charge so much money to get your electricity.
National Grid.
Well, look, hopefully you won't see a situation like the road fuels market, petrol and diesel market, where prices go up and you've got people like OPEC who are forcing the prices up. And countries have caps, and with France it's like, you know, 30 pence per kilowatt hour, whereas we could be sort of 70, 80. But if you plugged all 80% of the car park in now, National Grid say it would only increase the load by 10%.
What about like if everybody had one? Because obviously there's a lot of cars people have now, so if you change us all to EVs.
I wrote this in here. The grid won't cope. And the thing about batteries in electric cars is that you can have what's known as a vehicle to grid and bidirectional charging. So the grid can take power from batteries, and you will be paid for the grid to take that power from your fully charged battery that goes back into the grid when you've got peaks, and then you can charge your car when there's plenty of electricity and renewables later, and make money out of it. So this is the idea that all these electric cars are a giant battery to support the grid at times of peak load.
Yeah.
Do a sign off?
Yes, of course. Thank you very, very much, Quinton, for doing this. I can just thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate it.
You're an absolute star, Quinton. Thank you so much.
Look, it's great. It's a pleasure. I get the feeling though I haven't convinced you, have I?
Well, I mean, you've made it sound better. You have made it sound better.
Well, there's a start.
You have made it sound better. I do love my little Mike. The name's Maury. We have a very big connection. So I don't feel like, I don't think I could ever, I don't really want to see a world where we don't have them.
And you don't have to. You could keep Maureen forever.
I understand.
I think our massive concern is seriously the artisanal mines, the child labour.
Yeah. It's got to stop.
And even
it's got to stop.
Not even the children, the people that aren't getting paid for what they're doing. That is my concern about it.
And we should do everything as a society to stop that happening. Absolutely, and battery circularity and passports really important. Right, looks like we're going to have to go.
Thank you so much, Quinton. You're an absolute star.
But promise me that you're going to go in a couple of electric cars and just get a sense of how good they are. Yeah?
I don't know if I can talk.
We'll make you an honest on micro.
Yeah.
All right.
It's quite fast. It's quite big.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for watching this. I cannot thank Quentin Willson enough. I mean, the fact that he turned up today and did it was a very big honour, and I'm very grateful for the fact that he did it. And the fact that we could do it in such a stunning place as well is absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much for him for agreeing to do it. I very much do appreciate it. And thank you so much for everybody who was watching it. And I hope you enjoyed the video and learnt a lot. So thanks you. Have a great day. Bye!